Go.
There we go.
Hey. Image view the full screen. Boom. Okay. I don't know how to get rid of this little thing at the bottom. Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm so clever. So, sorry for the delay. So you have noticed that I gave you a lecture on the Middle Ages. I gave you a lecture on the French Renaissance, and this is going to be about French classical painter of the 19th century. I'm nice to you guys because I'm sparing you the tedious and contrived Baroque period of the 18th century, which was followed by the even more awful and frivolous period of Rococo before the more grandiose and austere neoclassical period. I'm not going to show you any of that. What I'm showing you is example of bad artwork that I've chosen to not show you. This is an example of the Baroque period. This is a painting by Fragonard called The Swing. I'm not going to show you that. The next one, whoop. Hold on, I'm trying to get the other picture. Here's another bad picture. This is Madame de Pompadour by a painter called François Boucher. All these painters are Baroque and Rococo, so you can see they're very grandiose with a lot of decoration. It's, to say the least, it's irritating. So I'll show you another bad one, right? I mean, they're well painted. This is William Adolphe Bouguereau, and it's Nymph and Satire. So the entire century was dominated by Baroque and Rococo painting, and you understand now why we're not going to talk about that. What we're going to talk about is the incredible art created in France in the 19th century. And at that stage, the artwork is still very classical and academic in its nature. By the turn of the 20th century, just a tad before, come the Impressionists. So this lecture will lead to the Impressionists and more modern art.
I was just about to say.
So I'm going to start this presentation with the King Louis XVI of France. This is Louis XVI of France. He's in his casual clothes, and I'm going to start with Marie Antoinette, who was Queen of France before they both died under the guillotine during the French Revolution. After those two kings were guillotined, you had the arrival of Napoleon, who had himself sacred emperor. Then he was followed by another king. Then he was followed by another member of Napoleon's family, then by another king. Then it was the advent of the First French Republic, etc., etc. This is a painting of Marie Antoinette. This is a painting by a lady called Elisabeth Louise Vigée, and it's called Marie Antoinette with a Rose. So we're starting during the French Revolution. This is an oil on canvas that is fittingly at the Palace of Versailles. Marie Antoinette was the last queen of France before the French Revolution, and she was born the Archduchess of Austria. Her father was the Emperor Francis I of the Holy Roman Empire, which, according to Voltaire, was not holy, not Roman, and not much of an empire. This is the French Revolution, and this is a painting that reflects the storming of the Bastille in 1789. So when the French people celebrate the 14th of July, it is this they're celebrating. Of course, history is full of lies. There wasn't much to storming. The small garrison that was holding the fort surrendered, and they were massacred anyway. But that's what we're celebrating. This is a painting that is in the Louvre. The Bastille was a Paris fortress, and it was a symbol of the monarchy, and it was attacked by the French revolutionary. So I'll start with, what I'm going to show you is a lot of painters from the 19th century. And the way I went about it, I actually looked at hundreds of painters, and I looked at thousands of paintings, and I chose what I thought were the very best or the most interesting. I I could assume that most of you would choose different painting, but that is what I chose. So we're gonna start with a great painter called Jacques-Louis David. I recommend that if you're interested further in any of the artists I'm gonna show you today, because I'm gonna show you a lot of them, to ask me and write down the name, because afterward it'd be hard for you to remember what the artist was. So this is Jacques-Louis David. He was born in Paris in 1748 from a prosperous family. His father was killed in a pistol duel in 1757. He was a neoclassical French painter and a supporter of the French Revolution and later of Napoleon. So neoclassical and was when artists revert to styles of the Greek and the Roman. This is the Sermon of the Horaces. It's a legendary Roman story. It's an oil on canvas that only measures 14 feet by 11 feet. So it's grandiose in style, and this is at Le Louvre. This is the farewell of Telemachus and Eucharis. It's not my style of painting, but it is exquisitely painted. It's based on a 1699 French novel, which was based loosely on characters from a Greek poem, the Odyssey, which was attributed to Homer, although Homer is likely to never have existed. But this is 35 by 41 inches. It's painted in 1818. This gets interesting. This is called The Death of Marat. Marat was a friend of David, the painter, and he was also a French radical journalist and a politician who was assassinated by a lady called Charlotte Corday in 1793 during the French Revolution. This is a very famous painting that shows him being assassinated. This is an oil on canvas by Jacques-Louis David. It measures 65 inches by 50 inches. By chance, I found another rendering of his murder that feels more like a série noire. I found this one. This is painted in 1860 by a gentleman called Paul-Jacques Baudry. It's the murder of Marat. That looks a little more realistic, doesn't it? And you can see how beautifully painted the map of France. And if you can see my cursor, I'm from right here. I'll never miss a chance to show you where I'm from. Yeah. Jacques-Louis David was, of course, a supporter of the French Revolution, and after that by Napoleon. This is Napoleon when he's fairly young. This is the emperor in his study at the Tuileries Garden in France. It's a large oil canvas measuring 80 inches. This is a famous painting of his showing Napoleon crossing the Alps. And actually, Napoleon was a very brave man. He led his troop in battle. He did cross the Alps to get to Italy and to attack the Austrians. So this is a painting that commemorates this crossing of the Alps in winter. Yeah. This is a painting by Jacques-Louis David. And so that you get a feeling, this is the coronation of the Emperor Napoleon and Empress Josephine in Notre Dame de Paris. And you can see the Pope is sitting behind Napoleon, and Napoleon insisting on placing the crown of Empress himself on the head of Josephine, who is kneeling. This painting measures 32 feet by 20 feet. And all the people that you see, at least the main people, are recognizable. You know, they represent people that mattered at the time, and I won't bore you with all the details. This is a painting of Louis XVIII. Once Napoleon was no longer the Emperor of France, we had a king who was pretty useless, You know, you can see, look how look at his clothes. This is him in his coronation robes. It's painted in 1814, and it is at the Hotel Beauharnais in Paris. The painter, François Gérard, was a prominent French painter who was born in Rome, where his father was an ambassador, and he studied under Jacques-Louis David, the artist we just saw. So Louis XVIII was King of France from 1814 to 1824, when he mercifully was ejected and went back to England or somewhere else. This is the same painter, François Gérard. This is a famous lady called Juliette Récamier. It's an oil and canvas that measures almost 9 feet. She was a socialite who was very famous for her beauty, and her salon in Paris drew people from the literary and the political circle in the early 19th century. So you can see that this painting and the previous one paint in a very classical style. This is a close-up of the beautiful Juliette Récamier. Many artists painted her. A famous French painter is Théodore Géricault. This painting is very, very famous. It's called The Raft of the Medusa. It measures 23 feet by 16 feet. So it's an enormous painting. Géricault was a painter who was born in Rouen, in Normandy, where Joan of Arc was burned to the stake, and he's very known for his painting. He visited hospital and morgues where he could view firsthand the color and the texture of the flesh of the dying and the dead. That is true. And as he had anticipated, this painting proved highly controversial at its first appearance in the 1819 Paris Salon. This gentleman, Géricault, left us very few paintings because he died young at 33 years old. And the other painting I have of his is this one. This is a charging officer of the Napoleon Imperial Guard. It's an oil and canvas that is in the Louvre in Paris. The Imperial Guard was the elite.
Wow, that blanket on the horse is amazing with the head of the
leopard. Yeah. So I'm going to show you my favorite, very favorite painter of all time. It's only one of them, is Dominique Ingres, I-N-G-R-S. Very few people attain his quality of work. What is remarkable about the 19th century is now we're starting to get photographs. This photograph was taken in 1855. Isn't that cool? And 1855, they already had photographs. This is a picture of Ingres. He was born in 1780, and he was a neoclassical painter that studied under David, whom we just saw. And he's best remembered for his magnificent and smooth portrait, and no photograph will do justice to his work. It's not necessarily this painting. This is Napoleon in his imperial throne. And here you can see that Napoleon is shown almost as a divine figure. This is at the Museum of the Army in Paris. This is a painting by Ingres of a journalist, an editor, an art collector. His name was Monsieur Bertrand. You can see the strength and the beauty of the painting. This is remarkably painted. If you and I tried to paint a black coat, it would just look like a big black blob. You know, it's remarkable. Like you can see the details and the luster of the coat. This is a great painting by Ingres. No one does smooth as Ingres did. This is La Grande Baigneuse, which means the great bather. And it's a painting that is fairly large, around 70 inches. Charles Baudelaire, the French poet who wrote The Flowers of Evil, wrote that this painting had a deep voluptuousness, which is true. And if you saw Ingres painting in person, you would be amazed at the lack of brushstroke. It is so smooth. It's hard to believe. And this is the greatest painting I have ever seen in person. This is called La Grande Odalisque, the Great Odalisque. It's an oil and canvas that measures 64 inches. To see it in person is mesmerizing. The curtains and the skin. And yet he was heavily criticized for this painting because he did not have the right proportion. But
Yeah.
people were rather picky in academy, in the academic style. So this painting was commissioned by the sister of Napoleon, who became Queen of Naples, just like that, because she was the brother of Napoleon. And you can see the hashish pipe to the right. You guys see that?
Uh-huh.
No. wait.
Yes.
To the bottom right. This is an exquisite portrait, absolutely stunning portrait of the Baroness James de Rothschild. Of course, it's a commission. It's an oil and canvas that measures 56 inches. This lady, Betty von Rothschild, married her uncle and ruled over the most elegant salon in Paris. I guess they didn't have DNA tests then, it was all okay. But look at the quality of her dress. Isn't that moving to look at a woman like this? Know that she's, at one point she was alive and she looked just like that. And that is all we have of this beautiful woman. This is a portrait of Louise de Broglie. She was Countess d'Anceville. Of course, only wealthy people could afford to have work commission. Nevertheless, it is absolutely beautiful. This painting took Ingres 3 years to do. 3 years, guys. All right. It's exquisite.
Look at her hair.
This is a painting of Madame Montessier. She was the wife of a wealthy banker and merchant, and he was 20 years older than her. This is 47 inches. It's at the National Gallery. And look at the clothes. Look at the details of her jewelry. I don't think, hey, Cliff, can I zoom into an area on Zoom or not? Can I zoom on Zoom? Cliff,
I do not believe so.
can zoom on Zoom?
But we
Okay,
can do it on our own, on my tablet, I can do it.
I don't trust you to do something so dangerous.
I just did it.
So this is Madame Montessier. He also painted her standing. Oh, this is the same painting with the frame, the original frame. And this is her standing. Is that striking? So when I was telling you that if you and I were to paint this black dress, it would just look like a big black blob. Look how delicate. It's incredible. Look at the jewelry, the background. It's so striking. This is it's at the national. It's in the U.S. This painting. It's at the National Gallery of Art. Remarkable painting. I love the wallpaper too. And it's signed here, Ingres, 1851. This is a portrait of a lady called Josephine. Oh, let me tell you her name. Her name is Josephine Eleonore Mary Pauline de Galard de Brassac de Béarn.
Jeez.
Right? Just call me Polly, you know. Noble people like to have very long name, name that would state all the titles. This is Josephine Eleanor Marie Pauline de Galard de Brassac. Her husband was an historian and politician who became prime minister during France's Third Republic. She was renowned for her shyness, her beauty, and her intelligence. However, she died of tuberculosis at the age of 35 years old. That's what I mean about pieces being moving, because here she is so beautiful and alive, And yet her life was so short and it was so long ago. Another painter, now we're moving to a painter called Paul Delaroche. Paul Delaroche was born in Paris in 1797, just after the French Revolution. He achieved great success with very melodramatic, classical and romantic painting. This is the interrogation of Joan of Arc by the Cardinal of Winchester in her prison. I won't remind you that the British burned Joan of Arc. I still have that issue. You know? So this painting measures, it's almost 9 feet. It's at the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Rouen. Rouen is the town where Joan of Arc was burned by the British, if I haven't told you. This is this very melodramatic piece called The Death of Elizabeth I of England. It's an oil on canvas that measures 14 by 11 feet. So, you know, what I really want to show you is the quality of the painting, you know, as much as the painting itself.
Almost looks like a photo, her hands, the person that's dying.
Yeah, it's greenish. So this is Elizabeth I of England. I thought I would show you another painting of Elizabeth I. This was painted in 1547, and I'm showing that for Mary Jane. Mary Jane, you hear me? This is Elizabeth I, painted in 1547. Is that outrageous or what? Look at how naively painted the face is compared to the unbelievable work on the clothes on the jewelry.
Yeah.
It feels three-dimensional. It feels like a collage. It's stunning.
Yeah.
Wow, the pearls.
I know. I know. Anyway, this is about French painting, so let's move on. This is the same artist, Paul Delaroche, the French artist, but this is the execution of Lady Jane Grey. Jane Grey was a pretender to the throne of England in 1553, and she was executed with her husband under the rule of Queen Mary. So this French painter was commissioned to do this painting, and you can see how realistic, how grandiose, how beautifully painted and exquisite it is. There's not much blood. Look at the axe.
Yeah.
The executioner looks more Bonnie than the standard executioner.
Yep. Yeah, it's such a beautiful painting.
That satiny dress.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
that dress is incredible. So you can see why some painting make it to great museums and most do not. You know, you can intuitively recognize when a painting is extraordinary. Let me find the next painting. Well, a lot of, you know, in order to get commission, you had to be very good to the king or to the emperor. This is another version of Napoleon crossing the Alps to defeat the Austrians. And this is very interesting because this is Napoleon in his downfall when he's leaving Fontainebleau, you know, the castle, the castle of Fontainebleau. His kingdom is coming to an end, and it's very interesting because he's slumping into a chair. He's alone. You can see the disappointment in his face. His downfall is looming. The destruction of his empire has been decided, and the monarchy and Louis XVIII are coming soon. But look at how dirty his boots are.
I was noticing that the dirt on the boots is so different.
Yeah, it is exquisite. So you can see what the difference between him standing on his throne and today. And these are his last days as an emperor. A great painting, and this is for Natalie. This is Peter the Great of Russia. This is painted in 1838. And Peter the Great was the emperor of Russia from 1682 to 1725. An interesting piece by this painter is this one. He painted his wife on her deathbed.
Jeez.
She had died and he painted her.
Oh my God.
And it's very touching, very, very touching. And of course, he gives her this, this angelic look to her. But it is nevertheless a very powerful painting.
And she stayed very still for the sitting.
Yep. I think he killed her in order to be a better sitter.
But I wonder how long it took him to paint that while she was lying there dead.
Probably did sketches, Terry, and painted it later. A painting like this takes many months. I can
That's what I
guarantee
was thinking.
A great French painter was Jean-François Millet. And this is, again, one of the earliest photographs, and it's taken by a great French photographer. His name was Nadar, and he took the first photograph in around 1840, 1850. This is a painting of Jean-François Millet. Millet was a French painter. He was born in a village in Normandy in 1814, and he's well known for his affinity and his painting of peasants. So I'm going to show you his painting, which are so famous in France. This is the Angelus. The Angelus is a prayer that is said at dawn and sunset. It's at the Musée d'Orsay. Actually, a lot of the painting I'm showing you today are at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, which specialized in 19th century art. So this is the Angelus by Millet. This painting here is very famous. This is called the Gleaners. So the Gleaners, they're very poor women, and they were allowed to go quickly through the fields at sunset to pick up one by one the ears of corn that had been missed by the harvesters. So it's a very daring style of painting in a very academic world of art. To paint peasants was not a very popular thing. And I'm going to show you my favorite painting by Millet. This is called Death and the Woodcutter. It's painted in 1858. Is that beautiful? You can see the tragedy of the poor dying. Millet liked to portray the humble and the peasant. He was, in a way, he admired these people. So, he was heavily criticized. He was also praised, but he was also criticized because, his painting showed the harshness of rural life. Another extraordinary painter, and I mean that, is Gustave Courbet. He was a French painter who led the French realist movement. So he painted only what he could see, and he rejected the academic convention. You can see how different his colors are. This is called the Painter's Studio. It measures 20 feet by 12 feet, a huge painting that is at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. But his most extraordinary painting is this one. This is called a burial at Ornans. Ornans is a little town. And the painting records the funeral in September 1848 of his great uncle in the small town of Ornans. And what's incredible as he treats this very ordinary provincial funeral with unflattering realism, and he paints it on the giant scale that is traditionally reserved for the heroic or the religious scene of history painting. So this was exhibited at the Paris Salon in 1850, and this created an explosive reaction, and it brought Courbet instant fame. And you see how different there is a Winsor Newton oil paint that I've bought before. It's called Courbet Green, because he painted in this very dark, olivey, blackish green. This is Alexander Cabanel. I know I should not show you that, but that is a famous painting. It's a bit sickly, but hey, but it is well painted. He was born in 1823, and he painted very historical and classical subject in a very academic style. But the next painting is quite remarkable. This is called Albaide. Albaide, it's the name, it's inspired by a poem by Victor Hugo called Fragment of a Serpent. And I found this painting and her gaze quite incredible. You guys want to see more of Napoleon, don't you? Okay. It's not the right one. This is the second Napoleon. Of course, the second Napoleon, which came from the same family, also had himself declared emperor. Why not? This is in the Chateau of Compiègne, and Napoleon III was emperor of France from 1848 to 1870. Way too long, if you ask me. This painting by Cabanel is really amazing. This is Cleopatra tasting poison on condemned prisoners. Does this not amaze you that you can paint so realistically using candles? Look how casually she's watching the prisoner dying just to try her poison. This painting is called Pandora. It's an oil on canvas, and this woman is truly beautiful. The woman that is depicted in this painting is a Swedish soprano singer. Her name was Christine Nilsson. And I absolutely love this painting. So I looked for a picture of her. This is a picture of her by the photograph Nadar. And you can see. It's pretty cool that we don't think we have photograph from that far away. But this is 1873. Another French painter is Jean-Léon Gérôme. This is a painting showing Russian soldiers playing music. Gérôme was a painter and sculptor born in the town of Vesoul in France in 1824, and he's considered one of the most important painters from the academic period. And this painting depicts a moment of respite for Russian soldiers as they enjoyed the playing of music. So you're going to see the neoclassical. This is called the slave market. I think she will pass. They will keep her as a slave. The other one is even worse. Check this one out. This painting, because there's a story behind it, the painting depicts Pharynx. Pharynx is this naked woman. She's being disrobed before the Greek court. And because she was on trial for impiety, but she was acquitted when her defender removed her robe to expose her beauty. You can see all the old men are going, nah, she's not guilty, right? No doubt she's acquitted. But this is an amazing painting nevertheless. And this is a painting called Pygmalion Galatea. This is those who are about to die salute you. So it's a painting on the arena and the circus in Rome. So very neoclassical painting, very large, huge painting that were very popular at the time. And this painting is a very famous painting. It's called Pygmalion and Galatea. And the Roman poet Ovid relates that was a long time ago. He relates that Pygmalion, he was a sculptor. He made an ivory statue which represented the ideal of woman. And then he fell in love with his own creation, which he named Galatea. And the goddess Venus brought the statue to life in answer to his prayer.
That's cool.
So this is the story of Pygmalion and Galatea, which is based on a Roman poem by the poet Ovid. I found another version of this, which is just not as exciting, but this is an illumination from the 14th century that relates the same thing.
Oh.
To differ a little bit from his regular style, I found this painting of his. His name is Jean-Léon Gérôme. He painted this landscape that I found absolutely beautiful.
Mhm.
There's something to it, isn't it?
Mhm.
So this is a summer afternoon on a lake. And this painting is a duel after a masquerade. It depicts a man dressed as a Pierrot. Pierrot is a type of mime who has been mortally wounded in a short duel. It's very dramatic painting. The next artist is William Adolphe Bouguereau. Most of his work is very Baroque and Rococo, and we had a conversation about that. So I'll just show you two of his paintings because he painted hundreds. This is called The Day of the Dead.
Mm.
It's an oil and canvas that measures 58 inches by 47 inches. And Bouguereau was definitely an academic painter. And the Day of the Dead in France is on November the 2nd. It's a Catholic commemoration. And I remember as a child, I would go see my grandmother, whoever would go to cemeteries. And what people bring to tombs in France, they chrysanthemum, am I saying it right?
Chrysanthemum.
Yeah. So they always remind me of death because of that. Anyway, this is his painting. And he also painted his wife, Elizabeth Gartner. And I thought this picture was rather moving because here he's painting a very intimate subject. There's a lot of emotion in his painting. An incredible, absolutely incredible and unique painter of the 19th century is Gustave Moreau. He was born in Paris in 1826, and he was a very important figure of the symbolist movement. He was a prolific artist that produced over 15,000 paintings and drawings. And often he painted allegory and traditional biblical and mythical subject, but in a very unique style. So this is Jason and Medea. It's Greek mythology. This is another one. Check this painting. It looked like he was painting the Haight-Ashbury in 1960. It's Jupiter and Senele. It's an oil and canvas that measures 8 feet. Very unique and very daring way of painting for his time.
Black wings. What the hell is that?
This is my favorite painting of his.
Mm.
A beautiful landscape, those yellow and oranges. This is called Autumn.
Oh.
It's so beautiful. And this is Salome dancing before Herod. It's a gospel story of her dance at the celebration of her stepfather, who had John the Baptist beheaded at a request, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's a Bible story, and it is exquisitely painted in a very unique way.
Protection.
The next artist is Auguste Toulmouche. This unusual name. He was a painter born in the city of Nantes, which is in Brittany. He was born in 1829, and he was known for his luxurious painting of upper middle class Parisian women in domestic scenes. So this is a painting of Rose Caron. Rose Caron was a very famous French opera singer in 1857. I found a photograph of her.
Mm. Whoa.
She's beautiful. See, that's the thing about art, we have paintings and we have poetry, and but we don't have any recording of all those great singers from antiquity to any age, none of that. But we do have paintings. This is a painting of his called Vanity. It's a little bit of Norman Rockwell, corny feeling, but it is very beautifully painted. And you can see that his style among the wealthy crowd in Paris of upper middle class Parisian women, it was a very popular style. This is the Love Letter, painted in 1883. And this one is really remarkable. It's called The Kiss. What's remarkable to me about it is you cannot see the man face.
Mhm.
And the light against her hair.
And the light against her hair, yeah.
And he has a glove on one hand and
Yeah.
the other hand is bare.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. Look how beautifully painted his satchel is. You feel it's leather somehow. So let's move on to a great, great painter. It's Manet. And I'm not saying Monet, I'm saying Manet, M-A-N-E-T. And Manet, to me, was an even greater painter than Monet. This is a photograph of Manet by Nadar once again. Isn't that cool? We have a painting of Manet.
A photo, you mean?
A photograph, yeah. Yeah. He was born in Paris in 1832, and he was one of the first 19th century painter to paint modern life. And he was a great figure in the transition from realism to impressionism. This is Music in the Tuileries Garden.
Mhm.
And this gentleman here is actually the poet Baudelaire. If you guys know who Baudelaire is, he wrote The Flowers of Evil. So you can see now, Manet, you can see it's starting to turn toward the Impressionists. It's not as much classical as other paintings. It's a very daring and new way of painting. The next painting was the most shocking painting that Parisian had ever seen.
Mhm.
This is Lunch on the Grass, and that truly shocked people because he depicted a nude female that is barely dressed or not dressed at all on a picnic with two fully dressed men in somewhere in the forest. And this painting was rejected by the Paris Salon in 1863. And Manet seized the opportunity to exhibit this painting toward what was known as the Salon of the Refused in 1863. So this painting created great notoriety for Manet and also great scandal. This is Manet. This is called Olympia. And you can see that the woman here is the same as this woman.
Mhm.
So this painting was even more shocking. You know, let alone the fact that there's a Black woman being portrayed. She also looks at she's naked. She looks at the painter in a very daring and confrontational gaze, you know. So it caused shock and astonishment when the painting was first exhibited, because a number of details in the painting also identified her as a prostitute. So you're no longer painting, you know, the very wealthy woman of Paris. Now you're painting prostitute. This is a very touching painting by Manet. It's called A Bar in the Folies Bergère. Folies Bergère was a famous cabaret in the Montmartre area in Paris. And he just depicts a scene in a nightclub. You can see the melancholy on her face. There's something tragic and powerful. And you can also appreciate the depth of the painting with the people are reflected in the mirror.
Mhm.
This is the balcony by Manet. It's an oil on canvas, measures 67 by 49. It's also at the Musée d'Orsay. It shows 4 figures, but the lady here, this lady is Berthe Morisot. And Berthe Morisot was a famous French Impressionist painter, and she was married to this gentleman who is the brother of Manet. This painting is called In the Conservatory. You can see how we slowly moving toward modern art because the brush strokes are more powerful. You know, they're not as carefully laid. There's more emotion. It's more raw.
Yeah, if you think about it, you look at her dress there as compared to some of the other ones that we've seen, and the detail just isn't there, but it doesn't matter. That's
Right.
so shiny and new and lacy and
It's powerful. And I'm going to leave you with this painting by Manet. I'm not leaving you, there's more, but for Manet, I found this painting very exquisite because there's something almost shy about the painting. It's almost self-effacing. She was the same woman that you saw laying on a couch. She was the same woman that you saw laying on the grass. She was the favorite model of Manet. And this painting is in the US. It's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it's called Young Lady with a Parrot. The next artist is Henri Fanton-Latour. He was born in 1836 in Grenoble, which is near the Swiss border. He was, amazingly enough, he was a friend of Whistler and he was a friend of Manet. And he married a lady called Victoria Dubourg. So here, this is a painting studio in the area of Batignolles outside of Paris. It's painted in 1870. Manet is here. That's Manet. And Monet is here. This is Monet here. This is Manet. This is Monet. You know, I struggle to meet other artists, and it's amazing how these people knew each other. So this is one, and he also painted this painting, which is a corner of the table. It's at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. And if you guys know anything about French poetry, this is Paul Verlaine. And this is Arthur Rimbaud.
Mm.
This is a great photograph. This is Paul Verlaine. Anybody heard of Paul Verlaine?
No.
Is one of the most famous French poet. Actually, during World War II, during the invasion of Normandy, there was a radio code from the BBC to inform the French resistance that the landing was happening. And in order to convey that the landing was on the way, it was what was said on the radio was a poem of Verlaine. So this is Paul Verlaine drinking absinthe. Absinthe is, a drink that could be very, very poisonous, but it's amazing that you can see an image of his.
And
this
absinthe
is,
makes the heart grow fonder.
for sure, this is a painting of his wife, Charlotte Dubourg. Sorry, this is a sister of his wife. You can see how differently painted the clothes are. It's very loose brush strokes, and yet it has tremendous form, body, and dimension. So the next painter, you all have heard of him. This is Edgar Degas. Degas was born in Paris in 1834, and he was, he's considered an impressionist, but at least the beginning, and he's known for his pastel drawing and his oil painting. This is a ballet class. It's an oil and canvas measuring 33 by 30 inches. But to me, this greatest painting is this one.
Mhm.
This is called L'Absinthe, the drink we were just talking about. And it portrays a woman and a man sitting side by side drinking a glass of absinthe. She appears lethargic and lonely.
Mhm.
The man is not even looking at her. Absinthe was an anise flavor drink, liquor, that was derived from different plants, and it's often portrayed as being a dangerous liquor and also as an hallucinogenic. Isn't there something moving about this painting?
Yeah.
And it reminded me of, I'm gonna go back for a second. You see this?
Yeah.
Mm.
Same expression.
Kind of spacey. But she's pretty sad.
It takes a lot of skill to be able to convey with such quick, powerful brushstroke, such a depth of emotion. This is a painting of Degas. It's called the Bellelli family. It's an oil and canvas that measures 8 feet by 7 feet. Huge painting. This was painting when Degas was young, and it's a portrait of his aunt, a husband, and their 2 daughters. It's very sober and powerful.
Just the one leg.
Oh, yes.
You can see the foot on the one of them. Yes.
This is the opera orchestra by Degas. This is an oil and canvas. It looks like a pastel, but it's an oil and canvas. It's a ballet rehearsal on stage. It's painted in 1874. A very unusual painting by Degas is this one. This is a cotton office in New Orleans, painted in 1873. And Degas painted the interior of his uncle cotton firm in New Orleans. So his uncle was probably a slave trader, but we'll pass on that. So he created this painting during a visit to New Orleans. And the last painting I will show you of Degas, to me, is the most powerful painting. It is known as the Rape. R-A-P-E.
Wow.
Although that is not the official title, but it is well known as that. So if you could make a painting against domestic violence against women, this would be a very powerful painting, in my opinion. And you know, one of the beauty of this painting is how, you know, how understated it is. You don't need somebody to write at the bottom what it's about.
Yeah.
You can see her despair and you can see his callousness.
Mm.
I like to see artists that have something to say. An artist that didn't have much to say, but who was very famous was Jacques Tissot. Again, he liked to paint the elegance and the wealthy, but he was good nevertheless. Jacques Tissot was born in Nantes, in Brittany, in 1836, and he became a very famous painter and illustrator before moving to London. So this group of people was commissioned from Tissot by the members of a circle of the La Rue Royale. It was like a gentleman club, which had been founded in 1852. And each of the 12 people that I portrayed paid 1,000 French francs, which was a fortune, to be in the painting. So each one of these men represents somebody that was part of this gentleman club. Look at the pens here, the details on the pens here.
The walls didn't help under the sofa.
This painting measures 10 feet. A very big painting, very classical.
That crumpled up paper on the floor is interesting. I just wonder why it's there.
It's Fox News. It's for it.
Some paper to be there.
So this is a painting that was actually very shocking to people, not to us. This is the Thames River. It's an oil and canvas. It's the Thames River in London. But many people in London found this artwork very dirty, aesthetically and morally, because you can see the pollution, you can see the flumes of smoke and the filthy water. And many people found that unappealing, and only women of ill repute would be caught into such a leisurely position with a man on a boat. This was something you just did not do. So it was shocking. These women were seen as prostitutes, although they weren't.
There's a German Shepherd with them.
Where?
Yeah, right in
And
front.
a bug,
In the
That's a
front,
bug.
German Shepherd. And a bunch of champagne at the bottom.
front of that one, in front of the guy's leg.
Oh, you're right. You're right. This is a woman at the rifle range. As I said, you know, he painted very elegant women of the 19th century and was highly paid for his painting. Here's a pug for you. This is a young lady with a boat, you know, and whether you like his style or not, you have to appreciate the quality of his painting.
Mhm.
Here's another painting that created great shock into the Victorian era. It's called The Captain Daughter. And what was shocking to people is the ambiguous relationship between the captain daughter here and the sailor who is looking at her. You know, that look was almost pornographic to people at that era, you know. So it was seen as very risque by British critics, and they viewed they already viewed the French people as morally suspect. So this definitely defined, you know, he refined his suspicion. This is a great painting called Ball on a Shipboard. It's a great ball on a boat. It's very unique. Look at the painting of the flags, and
Yes.
it's almost like a photograph where people are caught, you know, unaware. It's just a moment in time. And I chose this painting because I love her yellow dress.
Mhm.
Yes.
Whoa.
So this is called the ball yellow dress. So now we're moving to another artist called Francois Flamand. Francois Flamand was a French painter born in the 19th century, and he's the first one to design the banknotes of France. What you're looking at here is the unfortunate Marie Antoinette,
Mm.
her way to the guillotine.
Yes.
You know, I saw a book in a bookstore when I was in France, and it was the journals of Marie Antoinette before, when she was in prison, before she was guillotined. And it was almost impossible to read. It was so sad. You know, she had children. She waited, her husband already been killed. She was waiting for execution. And it was very hard to read. It was just so terribly sad. Anyway, this is Francois Flamand. This is a reception at Malmaison. Malmaison was a French castle outside of Paris, and he was the last residence of Napoleon. And you can see him here running after a woman, playfully running after a woman.
It's also seen in the Great Mountain.
He also painted this extraordinary, very classical painting. This is the bathing, taking a bath of ladies at the court. And this is at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. I love the landscape as a background. And this one is for Natalie. This is, no, not that one. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, no. This is not. This is a painting of Madame Adeline Noble. It's an oil on canvas that is at the Smithsonian Museum. And it's very striking. The character and the elegance of this beautiful woman.
Wow.
There's something very powerful about that painting. It reminds me of the painting of Whistler when he painted his mother. So this one now is for Natalie. This is a portrait of Princess Zinaida Yusupova. And this is, Zinaida Yusupova was a Russian noblewoman. So fittingly, this painting is at the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. She was a Russian noblewoman. She was the heiress of a very large fortune, and she was famed for her beauty. And she was also the mother of Prince Felix Yusupov. And Felix Yusupov is the man that murdered Rasputin. So I found a photograph of her. This is Zinaida Yusupova. And she's a maid of honor at the imperial court in Russia. I know I should show you a French painting, but I felt compelled to show you another painting of Zinaida Yusupova. This is an incredible painting. It's painted by a Russian painter called Valentin Serov. I did a lecture on artwork I saw at the Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow, and I had one of this painting. It's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see what's left. So the last painter, because all good things come to an end, is one of my favorite French painters. His name is Gustave Caillebotte. He was born in Paris in 1848. He died fairly young at 46 years old. So this is a young man at his window. This is at the Paul Getty Museum.
It's that painting I love so much.
Caillebotte.
Caillebotte.
Yeah.
This is a painting of his mother, his aunt, his cousin, and a family friend. And it felt like a very common and normal afternoon, you know, women knitting in a beautiful park. One of my favorite painting is this one, because I lived in Paris. These are the rooftops of Paris, and it's very Parisian in feel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The typical view of Paris rooftop. So the next two paintings, I bet that you have seen both of them because they are incredibly famous. This is called the Floor Scrapers. It's at the Musée d'Orsay right now, but I first saw it at the Institute of Art of Chicago. And this one is beautiful. This is Paris Street in the rain. And the last paintings I'm going to show you is an unusual painting, but it is by Caillebotte. I chose it because I found it so beautiful. This is a type of flowers called nasturtium. Does that ring any bell to you guys?
Yeah.
That's right. Mr.
Nasturtium?
That's pretty.
Very different.
You know, Cliff, I'm trying to find the stop recording button, but I don't have it. Stop share.